Hey guys, it's Anjali from Doodle Quilting Studio back this week to talk to you about pricing. So I know pricing is sometimes something that is a little awkward to talk about, but we're gonna jump in. We're gonna talk about different things. Hopefully, if you guys have any questions, you feel comfortable asking them here. But we're gonna talk about different ways that quilters charge for their services, and then ways that you can be sure that you know the full cost of your project before you leave the quilter. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the two different ways that quilters charge. So the first way, and I think probably the most common, is per square inch. So what that means is they measure your quilt. So they're taking the length and the width, and they're measuring your quilt, and they're taking that number and they're charging it, or they're multiplying it by their square inch price. So like for me, for edge to edge service, I charge 4.5 cents per square inch. So and I'll show you here, I'll pull up a calculator and walk you guys through it. I do have a calculator on my website, and some other quilters I've seen have it as well, where you can choose the type of quilting and put in the dimensions of your quilt, and then it will give you an estimate there. Now, the only disclaimer there is I would say that's going to be like a starting point. Once you talk to the quilter, you may determine that you want something a little bit more intricate, or maybe not as much, or something like that. So I would take that kind of just as a ballpark figure. And then, of course, once you talk to the quilter, you should be able to get a definite answer on the price. So square inch, again, calculated based on the size of the quilt. That's the way that I charge, is by the square inch, for everything from edge to edge up to custom. And if you look at my website, and I'm sure that there are other quilters that have it too, there is a range. So for custom, and by custom I mean anything that's not edge to edge. So anything where I'm doing ruler work, or multiple different free motion designs, or just anything that's more intricate than a standard, one design from one side of the quilt to the other. So you can look at the different services they offer. And like I said, for mine, for custom, I have a range. So custom quilting starts at 6.5 cents a square inch up to 10. Now, the reason I have that range is that, there can be custom work that's not, maybe not quite as detailed, or not as dense, or things like that. So the price varies somewhat on the density of the quilting, different number of designs that I'm putting into the quilt, and things like that. So there's definitely a range, and that would be where, if you're unsure, again, having that conversation with the quilter during that intake process, or even before, if you're not sure, to determine, okay, what level of quilting am I looking at? Do I want something really dense, really intricate, and then I'm looking at more expensive, or is it going to be something that's a little less expensive, something you don't want as much quilting on, or things like that. And you can kind of gauge which part of the range that you're in. So per square inch is going to be the first one. Again, probably the most common. The second one is hourly, and I've only ever heard a few quilters that charge hourly, and a lot of times it's for that custom work. So from what I understand, the reason they're charging hourly is because obviously the custom work does take a bit longer. So if you're looking at putting, intricate feathers, or different things you want every block different, or something like that, that definitely takes a lot longer than, an edge to edge, or even something that's, maybe you're doing something in the blocks and something in the background, but only two different designs. And so a lot of times it can be hard to estimate the price when you're doing custom work like that. And so a lot of times, not a lot of times, let me back up. Some quilters charge hourly for that, again, because maybe they don't know off the top of their head how long it's going to take them. So I would say, if you are working with a quilter that's charging hourly for custom work, maybe be upfront if you have a limit, if you don't want to spend more than $500 on a project or something like that. Be upfront with them, because that will help them gauge, okay, yes, I think I can do this in that amount of time, or no, I really can't. And that way you don't get to the end of the project, they don't get to the end of the project, and then you're shocked when you get the price, because those are not the fun kind of surprises. So in the interest of having all the information up front, be upfront with the quilter if you do have a limit. And that kind of puts me into the next thing. If you do have cost restrictions on the quilting, speak up about them. You know, you can talk to the quilter about doing different options. So if you have an idea and you find out, okay, this is going to cost me more than I originally thought. Of course, you have two options. You can go ahead with it and pay more, or you can talk to the quilter and figure out, okay, are there other options that would look just as nice, but maybe, you know, would cost less, not as intricate, or you know, not as many details, or not as many thread changes, because sometimes that adds extra to the cost. If you want everything color matched, that's going to add up really fast. So there are options, you know, sticking with one or two thread colors, or less dense designs, you know, less different, you know, fewer different designs will help you kind of reduce the cost probably there a little bit too. But definitely be upfront, because like I said, those are not happy surprises when you get to the end and you're like, oh, that's how much my quilt is. That's really expensive. I will, the one little disclaimer I will say is that you are going to pay for quality work. So if you're doing custom quilting, expect to pay more, obviously. And, you know, like I said before, you know, as the Longarmer, we really want our work to enhance your quilt. You've spent a lot of time on it. We've probably spent a lot of time on it. We want it to be what you want. We want you to be happy with it. We don't want any of those disappointed surprises. So be upfront if you have cost restrictions, and just communicate that to the quilter. There's ways that you can kind of work around that. So and we will touch back on the estimate calculator. I will pull up some pictures for you guys, so you can see what mine looks like, and then we can run through and I can show you how the per square inch price is calculated, and that way you have an idea if you're trying to do some estimating on your own. You have an idea of how that process works. Hey guys, sorry, technical difficulties. So we are picking back up on not being afraid to say if the price is too much for the quilting. I happen to have a 5-year-old staring at me while I'm doing this. So don't be afraid to say if it's too much. So if you have a cost restriction, kind of like we talked about earlier, be upfront. So I have definitely gone through the whole intake process with people and gotten to the end where I walk through the quote, the work, all of that stuff. And at that point, they tell me that the plan we have is out of their price range, too much for their budget. They weren't expecting that cost, etc. So be upfront with that, because as the quilter, I don't want to get to the end and have you come and pick up your quilt and have to pay for it and be feeling stressed out about it. You know, I want you to be happy. I want me to be happy. And so if you're unsure that the price you're being quoted is out of your price range, or you just feel like it's too much, definitely speak up about it. Again, like I've said before, there are things you can do about it. Either change the plan for the quilting, which is what I did with this particular person. I said, you know, this is what I've come up with, but if you don't want as much quilting here, or, you know, we can try something else here, then it can kind of be adjusted. Now, I will say there are times where the plan I've come up with is what I really feel is the best plan for the quilt. And some of it just can't be skipped. You know, if you know, obviously some battings have ranges on what you can leave open. And so if you're, you know, just wanting to leave some things out, that may or may not work for the quilt, just because of the space there. So just some things to think about. But again, communication is such a big factor here that you need to speak up if you're not comfortable, because that will be better all around for everybody in the end. So, and last but not least, what's included. Oh, here's my 5-year-old who's staring at me. Hey guys, we are back to chat about what might be included in the charge from the Longarm Quilter. So, let's just jump right into it. So the first thing will be a thread fee, and that's probably the most common extra charge that you'll see. So I think probably 50-50 split, where you have a Longarmer that does charge an extra thread fee versus one that might just have it included in their square inch price or their, you know, hourly price, however they're charging for that service. I know for me, I include up to 2 color changes in my price. Once I get over 2 color changes, then I do have a small additional fee for doing that. Obviously, that takes more time. That also means that if they're color matching their top and bobbin thread, they have to do a bobbin change for every thread color thread color change they do on the top. So that means more time winding bobbins, more time spent changing thread instead of quilting, which is what we all love to do. So just keep an eye on that. I think that that's something that they should be, you should know up front. So they should be able to tell you, when you're discussing the plan for the quilting, if there are going to be more than 2 color changes or 1 or however they do it, that they should be able to let you know that. The other thing when we're talking about thread changes is there might be a bobbin fee, and that means either they're winding bobbins to match that top thread, or they're using pre-wound bobbins, which come with a thread already on them. They're just buying them like that, and those bobbins are not reusable. So once once they've used that up, it's gone. They can't reuse the bobbin. And then, they have to pay for those bobbins. So they're just kind of trying to cover that expense. But again, that would be something that they should let you know up front if there's a fee for that. Let's see. So then batting is probably the next one. I don't think I know any quilters that include batting in their fee. You might find one. But for the most part, I think a lot of long armors have batting for purchase. So you can either bring the batting with you, or you can purchase the batting directly from the Longarm quilter. That's kind of nice from the quilter's perspective, because if you have a king size quilt, then I don't have to store king size batting. I can just cut it off my roll or however I have it when I'm ready to load the quilt. That being said, it also doesn't bother me if people bring their batting. I would just say make sure that you're bringing a high quality batting to your quilter, because that could definitely affect the quilting. And then let them know, if you're wanting something specific. For me, I offer 3 different types of batting. So my clients can choose from, I have a cotton, and then I have, actually I have 2 different types of cotton, and then I do have a blend, which is, it's a silk bamboo blend batting. So, ask if you have a preference on the type of batting. Obviously, like if I have a client who wants wool, I don't stock wool, so that would be something they have to bring to me. But like I said, I'm not too particular whether they bring it or whether they buy it. Again, sometimes it's nice if you have a larger quilt, you don't have to haul around a bunch of batting. So let's see. So other things that might be fees that you might stumble upon, things that might be included. I do have, I call it a quilter's inconvenience fee, and that would be the only fee that I would have that would show up after the initial consultation. So the quilter's inconvenience fee covers things like if I have to repair the backing. So if I've gotten a backing and it was pieced together and maybe there's a hole or something didn't quite catch. I've seen it with minky, when you piece minky, it shifts a little. And so I've gotten some backings where it wasn't totally secure. So if I have to spend time repairing something or fixing something in order to be able to load that quilt, then I will charge a fee for that. Again, because that's something that, is taking out of the time that I am going to be spending quilting your quilt. And I don't even like piecing my own backs. So if I have to stop and do repair, then it's taking out time that I could be quilting your quilt. So let's see what else might be included here. Some quilters that do pantograph quilting might have a fee for the pantograph. So they might have a stash of pantographs, and if you choose one of their in-house ones, then there's no additional fee. If you're wanting a new pantograph or something like that, then there might be a small fee to help cover that. I know I've seen some quilters that you pay a portion of the pantograph, because those things are reusable, so they can use them for somebody else, kind of spread out that cost a little bit between different clients. So my biggest recommendation though, as far as fees and charges and things like that, is to just get as much information as you can up front. I don't like my clients to be surprised. Like, I don't want you to show up for your quilt and the fee to be not what I quoted you in the beginning. So for instance, like with that quilter's inconvenience fee, I will do my best to notify the client as soon as I discover the issue, and either, you know, I'm going to move ahead with that repair and then charge the fee, or depending on the situation, then the client has the opportunity to come pick up the project, repair what needs to be repaired, and bring it back to me. So don't be afraid to ask if there are going to be any additional fees. Again, during that intake process is your opportunity to ask those questions, and be sure that you know when you show up that the amount that you're paying is the amount that you were quoted in the beginning, and that there's no surprises. So I think that wraps up how long armors charge. I'm planning on doing a small Q&A on, you know, there are questions I get repeatedly from people either looking for quilters or you know, trying to figure out the quilting design. I may do a small little vlog on choosing quilting designs, because that's probably the one I get most often. But I hope that this information has been helpful to you guys, and I'm already planning a few more, you know, a couple other series to do, so hopefully we'll get those up and running. I am going to go enjoy some sunny weather with the kiddos. So hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time.